First of all, just a reminder, today is Chumash, Shishi of Parshas Nosai, so most Chumashim have it different than our Nusach. Our Nusach of Chumash goes according to Chumash Teira Tmima. So, just like in Rishon, there's a difference between most Chumashim and our Minhag, and so to Shishi and Shvi, automatically is also a different Minhag, so make sure either you look at Achayenu or Ramachos. Basically, we do all of the Nisim today. We don't start by B'yem Ashti Yasur Yom. We do the last two today as well, and tomorrow we do the other one. Now, it's not such a big deal if you just keep to the same Chumash. But if you do one Chumash today, one Chumash tomorrow, you might end up skipping some Sukkim, so make sure you won't do that. Also, a reminder, today is the longest Shnai Mikra of a single Parsha, so Chaparayim. First question, what was the most recent Kates? Kates, what does a Kates mean? A Kates means where Rabbanim throughout the generations, from the Gemara's times, they mentioned times when Mashiach will come, or time when the Golus will end. So there's a very big discussion about Kitzin. Are you allowed to make Kitzin or not? The meaning of that, we have a Sefer in the other library, which is called HaKates, from a Yidden in Crown Heights, or the Zalman Herzl, and he goes through a lot of the discussions. So the question is, what's the most recent Kates? So as far as I know, the most recent Kates is Tovshin Ayin Hey. That was 7 years ago, and it's based on the Pasuk in Parshas Pekudei. Everyone likes to sing V'es ha'elef, right? But that ha'elef is, so the Alter Rebbe one time when he was a Balkoira, instead of saying V'es ha'elef, he said V'es ha'elef Shva me'yes chamisha v'shivim, which is ha'elef, 5,775, 5775. So the Alter Rebbe, there's a story when that year the story was going around that there was a chassid that understood that it's a kates, that he wanted to tell somebody, and he ended up passing away on the spot. So Chassidim realized that even those that understood were not supposed to pass it on to other people, but I guess the tradition remained amongst Chassidim quietly, and the Tavshin Ayin Hey, it's printed in different places. Right, so as far as I know, that's the most recent case. Where's Mashiach? What are we doing wrong or not doing enough of? There's no answer for that. Mashiach has to come right away. We're not doing anything wrong. We did enough of everything, and there's no excuse why Mashiach shouldn't be here. If Hashem was telling Avram that, that's not written clearly, but how come he just, okay, whatever, I'll explain the question in my words, but the Bachar is asking that Avram Avinu, when he was, his name was only Avram, he wasn't able to have children. And Hashem told him, say me, it's like Nino Shalchad, Ibishar said, I'm going to turn your name from Avram into Avraham, and the Mele you'll be able to have children. So the Bachar is asking, why did Hashem have to change his name to Avraham? Hashem could have changed the way things run and make Avram have children. Why was it necessary to change his name to Avraham? So the answer seemingly would be that in general there's a rule that Hashem makes as little miracles as necessary. Only when Hashem created nature, Hashem wants it to run in a certain kind of way, and only when it's really necessary, for whatever reason, Hashem wants to reveal godliness into the world, Hashem wants to punish or reward for something specific, then Hashem makes something which is l'mayla min hateva. Other than that, Hashem tries to make things al pi teva, and even when He does make a miracle, He tries to make the miracle, so to speak, as least shidu hateva as possible. So it could be that when the stars and all those kind of things work, changing his name to Avraham ends up being a lot more natural than having Avram have children. Having Avram have children goes against the whole constellations of the stars and all the Shtalshalus, and that would be a very big miracle. But changing his name to Avraham is, like in a way, an easy fix that doesn't really change much. We see today when people are not feeling well, it's a common thing that we add a name, usually the name Chaim or Alter, a similar kind of name. What are we trying to do? Miracles. We're trying to do what Hashem did to Avraham. We're Kivyachol shifting the hashpah to get from a different place that it should be more Teva Nida V'Anigla. So that's the pshat why it's not considered a bigger miracle. That's why Hashem did it this way. Yeah? Yeah?
Wasn't Hashem trying to prove that you are above the stars?
That's a different Indian.
So why do you trying to prove that why do you?
There's a different Indian that Hashem told him that we're Lamayla Mikol Zeh. One of the ways of explaining the Pshat Maimer Chazal is that Hashem told him you're not limited to the way it is now because I can switch it and you can still work.
Why does the father-in-law and son-in-law have the same name? One of them has that name.
It's out of left field. No connection to the discussion.
No, but it's accident name. No, have the name.
No connection to the discussion. A whole different question. Put it in the box and then maybe we'll look it up for a different time. Can't put me on the spot, remember. Very, very heavy question. What should I do if my parents said they don't love me? As you know.
It's hilarious. It's honest.
It's a very, very tough question. The only thing I can say without knowing is I assume that all parents love their children. The assumption is based on the teva that Hashem created. The havdil, even animals have the teva, and it goes against the teva of a parent to not love their child. Sometimes a parent gets upset, and a parent in a moment of anger can say something which implies that they don't have love for their child. Sometimes they can say it in an explicit way which can't be understood differently. But the understanding is that no matter what the parent says, the parent loves their child. It's an inherited thing. And even though the parent maybe doesn't want to love their child, they can't help themselves but love their child. So you should know that your parent loves you, no matter what he says, no matter what she says. At the same time, sometimes your parents want you to behave in a certain kind of way. So there's many methods of trying to educate children. Some of the ways are b'derech yimin mikarev, some are smel doiche. So sometimes a parent might feel that the good way to educate their child is in a way of smel doiche, by telling them, I don't love you, so this way the child will behave better. Is it the right way, the wrong way? It's a different discussion, but it could be that's what's happening. But you should know your parents love you, and they want the best for you, and they want to help you out. They want you to be matzliach. And at the same time, you have to know that you have to do your part to serve Hashem and be a good boy. That's the best I can do without knowing more information. I don't need to know more information. But if it's worse than that, meaning if sometimes the parents, their love is so hidden that it's mamish, the child never ever feels loved by his parents, and he really feels that his parents hate him and out to get him, then sometimes you have to have intervention. You have somebody telling the parent that your kid feels that he doesn't love you. Most cases, the parents would be shocked to hear such a thing, and that could help out. That could help the parents start showing their love. But again, this is only based on what the question was written. Did the Rebbe say that we are achishena? The Gemara says that it asks a whole bunch of contradictions regarding when Mashiach comes. If it's going to be, for example, we're going to fly on the clouds, or we're going to go on a donkey. So the Gemara, and the other contradictions, the Gemara answers many of the contradictions by saying it depends how Yidden are going to behave. If Yidden are going to be Zoiche, we're going to have Mashiach achishena quickly in a special kind of way. Lo Zachu, if we're not going to be Zoiche, it's going to be Be'ita. It'll just be in its right time in a different kind of way. So the Rebbe does imply this. I just looked it up before in Sefer HaSichos Tav Shinun, page 651. Put the camera on for a second, just a little Sefer HaSichos Tav Shinun, Chelik Beis, page 651 in the harder. The Rebbe over there says that there's a regular Seder of Geula, what it says in Chazal in general, only applies if it's going to be Zoch. However, now that we're Kol HaKitzin, we finished all the Kitzin and all the times have passed already, so now the rules don't apply. So the Rebbe doesn't clearly say the words, at least in that Sikha, Achishana, that we are even after Achishana, but the Rebbe is basically telling us that the implication is that yes, we are, based on what we went through, we deserve Mashiach to come in the best possible way, not in a Lo Zachu Be'ita kind of way. I remember once here the Rebbe clearly said Zachu, we're in a way of Achishana, but I couldn't find it. The only what I was able to find is what I said just now.
What did the actual word mean?
Achishana, I will rush it. He goes chish harofa. Chish. Make it quick. What is the goal of Toim Chetmimim? Anybody knows what this little booklet over here is? This is called Kundras Eitz HaChaim. It was written by the Rebbe Rashab. This booklet was given to me by the Rebbe when I was a kid. The Rebbe gave it out, and this Kundras Eitz HaChaim, the Rebbe Rashab wrote a number of kuntreis. Which ones? Kundras Hamayim, Tefillah, Aveda, and Kundras Eitz HaChaim. So Kundras Eitz HaChaim, each one are different. They say the Rebbe Rashab said that he also wanted to make a Kundras HaAchilo Ushtiya. Kundras how to eat and drink like a chassid, like a yid. Akopanim Kundras Eitz HaChaim, what it's about is the Rebbe Rashab established a yeshiva for Bachim to learn Chassidus. Well, Chanoich Lanar, not really a Kundras. It's a different kind. No, another one. Kundras Chanoich Lanar. It's not like Kundras. It's Chanoich Lanar. These are kuntreis. These are the four ones that are called. Part of the name is Kundras. Chanoich Lanar is a savo, is a testament, a will that the Rebbe Rashab wrote. Kiviyachol had to be mechanat to Friedrich Rebbe, but it's a lot more information there. Akopanim. So Kundras Eitz HaChaim, the Rebbe Rashab established in Chetmimim. It was a very big chiddush that Bachum should be learning Chassidus. Now in Zohar it says that Teiras HaNigla is called Eitz HaDas, and Pnimis HaTeira is called Eitz HaChaim. So the Rebbe Rashab was basically saying we should start learning Eitz HaChaim. So in order to explain himself why it's so important to learn Eitz HaChaim, to learn Chassidus, he wrote a whole kundus. And the beginning of the kundus is a little bit not deep, but it's a little bit harder. It's harder for a Mesivta Bacher to learn on your own. But as it gets into the Maimer from Yeshud Aleph Bemis, but later after it gets a lot easier to read. So Nois Chav Beis, the Rebbe Rashab, after making the whole Akdam of the importance of Chassidus, he says, Va'ato olai lo hidia lochem matoras hisyastus agudaseinu. Now I have to let you know what is the goal of the foundation of this Agudah, of Timchet Mimim. Teidu, you should know, Asher matoras hisoid agudaseinu. Einu rak lehachzik bachurim sheyasku b'toyim. The reason for our yeshiva is not only to give Bachrim, strengthen Bachrim and Limud HaTorah, B'milas Achiris, in other words, Yesod Agudaseinu Einei Lahagdil Laharchid Esak HaTorah Aniglis, at the foundation of our yeshiva is not just to broaden the learning Torah of Nigla. Ki im zoisi tachlis Yesod Agudaseinu, this is the following statement, is the tachlis, the goal of the foundation of this yeshiva, Asher HaBachurim Ha'iskim B'Torah Aniglis, that the Bachrim that learn Nigla, you Yehudim Yidin Yireim Ushleimim Im Hashem V'Toirasim. They should be Yidin that are fear Hashem and complete with Hashem and are doing what Hashem wants. Which basically means there's a primistic feeling of Ava V'Yir, and he goes on to say to have a Hergish Pnimi and so on, and this only happens through Limud Achsidus. That is the basic explanation for reason for establishing Timchet Mimim. Yachad Im Zeh, there's another thing, which another famous lashon, which is used all the time, that a Bachrim and Timchet Mimim are meant to be Neirois Lahoyer. That the goal of a Bachrim and Timchet Mimim should be a candle to give light, to spread the light of Yiddishkeit, which is a continuation of the same thing. If you're just learning Torah, Sheish Chiros, the 6 constant mitzvahs, Igeres HaRamban, Shivisi Avayel Negdi Somit, doing Ratzon Hashem, Dira B'Dachteinim, Abbas Hashem, Abbas Yisrael, Mashiach, Eskafir, Zettel Kotten of the Rebbe from the Gens. There's an endless amount of things to constantly have in mind and be aware of. But how? Fine, nice list. Put a very cute list. We'll probably add a few more things to the list as well.
He said it was endless.
Yeah. There's basically, the Bachar is asking, there's so many things that people say are a must. You must do this, you must know this, you must think about this. So how can you have everything in your mind at the same time? I mean, the Bachar doesn't, seemingly, he's not asking how can I learn all this, to know everything, fine. But how can I have everything in my mind all the time? So, I think everybody learned the Maimon Vadat of Nizakim, Kedeshim, Ukot Torah. Yeah? Everyone learned it. Why not? Everyone has to learn it. So we had a mitzvah even, no? Everyone learned it. And the Maimon over there, he talks about the concept that you have Torah in your head, even though you don't consciously think about it. What you learned is still considered that it's in your head. All these inyanim don't necessarily have to be at the fore of your head all the time. But when a person is learning Shnai Mechaz in Batalis, he can't be thinking at the same time of Igeres HaRamban or whatever, all the other important things that were mentioned over here. At the time he's thinking of Shnei Mechaz and Batalis, but he learns about these inyanim, all the inyanim of Achdus Hashem, of Inid Milvadai. Those things are constantly, clearly in his mind, so they're always at the back of his mind. So that's what the pasuk, that's what the Torah wants from us, to have them in such a kind of way. They were tremendous tzaddikim that they were able to have these feelings of fear and love all the time. There's a ma'aseh with Rav Shmelkim in Nikolsburg. I forget the details of the story. Either he was the one, or he had a Talmud. I think it was him he asked the Talmud. He asked one of his Talmidim that when I'm learning Torah, if I ever forget about Achdus Hashem for a moment, remind me. I think either he was the Talmud for somebody else, or he was the one that was the teacher, and he asked the Talmud to watch over him. And this Talmud said that for years he sat next to him, and he always sensed that even though he's learning Taisvus and everything what he's learning, he still has clear Achdus Hashem. One time, the Talmud thought that his taka is slipping, and as soon as the Talmud thought so, Shmuel turned to him right away and said, "I caught myself." Right away. So I know it's that's tzaddikim. They can mamish have it. But even in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe tells us that you have to have when your person learns Torah for a few hours at a time. If he's learning Torah Sanigla, every hour you stop to say Areini Loimi L'Shem. When your person writes a Sefer Torah, you have to have L'Shem Shamayim. So it's enough to have it in the beginning. So you have these things in the beginning before you start. That should be enough. Also, a part of the list can be easily added at the beginning of Perek Mamal if Hashem is watching over you. So that also the Rebbe says you think about it before you start davening. The Rebbe says often before you go to sleep and other times throughout the day. But those thoughts, the fact that you know the information solidly in your head and every once in a while, like once a day or whatever it is, you bring it back to your conscious thought. That's l'chayra what's asked from you, and afterwards you go to your regular things. I guess again, unless you're a tzaddik, you can mamish have all these kavanas at the same time. Can I learn Gemara Yerushalmi? Huh? What I want from you, huh? Of course you can learn Gemara Yerushalmi. Meaning, if you have permission to learn. Gemara Yerushalmi is a hard Gemara. We just now finished Masech Soita. So the Gemara at the end of Masech Soita says, the discussion about different languages, and the Gemara says there's a language called Lashon Sursi, and the Gemara says it's not a good language, not a nice language, it's not a comfortable language, not a fluent language. And Rashi says that's the language used for Gemara Yerushalmi. So it's a language which is hard to learn. So inside the language is a hard language to learn. Inside the style is a very different style than the style of Bavli. I'm not saying because I know a lot. This is what I was told always. Really that I look it up. So it's harder for most Bachim that when you learn Gemara Bavli to learn Yerushalmi, it's a different style, different language, and it's harder. The pile to open up a Yerushalmi, they have today already an art school Yerushalmi, to open it up and read it, because today it's still Teira Shemaim, it's Teira Chadesha, Teira Semis, that's 100%. But it's but derech we have a Seder in Teira. Just like a person's not meant to learn a thesis, if he learns the Gemara, so the pashtus, you don't go to Yerushalmi before you finish the Bavli. But every once in a while, the person can listen to a thesis share without the Gemara, so the same thing applies over here. If you're just for the fun of it, to open up Yerushalmi and learn a little bit, Adarab, it could be a nice thing, but it's not the regular Seder for most Bachim. Yes?
However, Yerushalmi is easier to learn because how about the back and forth, this, that, the other thing, we're trying to defend their opinion with this thing, the other thing. Talmud Yerushalmi, you're able to decide that they're just trying to work together to come to a conclusion.
It's true what you're saying, but Talmud Yerushalmi, a person that wants to figure things out is not going to enjoy that. You want to figure things out, and you hear the Svara Lakan, you appreciate it. Yerushalmi just says this, and it says that, says that. So much of blurbs one after the other, it's harder to read, it doesn't flow. You know, besides the fact that the language is an issue, but even if you have this in art school in English and everything is clear to you, but like where is he going, it's so much harder to understand. And it's frustrating for a person that wants to understand things, but it's like more like just learning halacha after, without seeing the connection sometimes. If the problem with non-Jewish music is that you connect with their neshama, then a goy has no neshama to begin with. And for a Frai Yid, didn't we learn that every neshama is pure and our Vedas are dirt covering it, but not it itself? So why can we listen to non-Jewish music? The Bachar is asking that the goy has no neshama, and the Yid, even though he's not religious, but his neshama is pure. So what's the problem since we're connecting with the neshama of the singer or composer? So the answer, first of all, is that a goy doesn't have a nefesh alikis. Well, it says in the end of Perek Aleph and Tanya that the goy has a nefesh achiyunis, and the goy's nefesh achiyunis comes from shalish klipos atmeis. So the goy has in a sense what we are calling neshama. The goy has a nefesh, and when the goy composes music and sings music, so he or she is connecting to a deeper part of their soul, and their soul that they have, which is Tumah. And when you listen and sing their songs, you're bringing upon yourself a very big a part of Tumah, Chman al-Islam with it. Regarding a Yid that's not religious, so yes, every Yid has a pin to the Yid. But when a Yid that's not religious goes and Chman al-Islam is Machal Shabbos and eats treif, he's not using his pin to the Yid right now. He's using his keiches hagluyim. He's using his part of his nefesh, which is contaminated, which is dirty, like the Bachar said, full of dirt, and that's what he's using now to do what he's doing. So when a Yid that's not religious composes music, but derech klal, it's not coming from his pin to the Yid. It might happen sometimes. But Ruba de Ruba, I would say 99.9%, the music he's composing is coming from the dirt that's on his neshama kivyachol, from the klipa, from the tumah that he has on it. And in Mela, when you listen to that music or sing that music, you're also connecting to the tumah that's on his neshama. What can we learn from the matzav in Eretz Yisrael now? And how is it connected to the coming of Mashiach? This is really a question for the Rebbe, but the Rebbe, as far as I know, did answer in general the thing. The one important lesson is Al Tiftechu b'Nedivim. You should know that the whole world hates us, no matter where we're going to go. The whole world, and it's the Frai Yidden that don't have the Pintel Yid is not Begilui. They hate the Frum Yidden even more than everybody else, Achman al-Islam. And that's one thing you should just know. So the only way, if you want to survive in this world, is by connecting to Hashem and relying on the Eibishter. But B'Noisev Lazed is a famous Seirah the Rebbe said, and I think some Israeli politician said it, that when the Rebbe was talking about Shleimus Haaretz not giving back land to the Goyim, so this politician said, I think the Rebbe afterwards acknowledged that's what he means, is that what happened in Eretz Yisrael is that the land, that Eibusha gave us this land. And after the wars, whatever, it was 1948, Hashem Ches, when the Yidden conquered a lot of the land, Hashem, it was open miracles, Hashem gave us the land. And then the Yidden, instead of holding on to it, they started giving it back to the Arabs. And as a result of that, what ended up happening? The Arabs want more and more and more, until now they want to kill us completely. The Arabs there, they don't want Israel B'chlal to exist, and they don't want Yidden Achman to exist. What's going on now, it's not just Eretz Yisrael, it's the world B'chlal, it's becoming a very, very scary place. So it all begins from the fact that the Yidden gave in to the Arabs in the first place. The Yidden let the Arabs have a little bit, and they asked them what the Yidden already owned, they gave back to them. So the lesson that Rebbe says, again, this is what I understand from the audition that Rebbe accepted as Pshat, is that every Bacher has ups and downs. At times when you're doing well, and times you're not doing so well. And then there are certain things that you have that are strong with you your whole life. Marshal, some Bacher, let's say, they've been learning Chitas since, let's say, they're in 6th, 7th grade already, they learn Chitas all the time. Then it comes to Yeshiva, you get older, you get Moritaivis, Moritzahara, so then slowly you say, no, something, so I know other Bacher don't say Chitas, so I'll also I'm not going to be so careful about it. So in that case, you're basically something that you conquered from the Arab inside you. You conquered the Kedusha, you made it part of Kedusha, and now you're giving it back to him. And when you give it back to him, as soon as he sees that he got something, he's going to start fighting even more to take more and more and more. Till Rahman Islani he wants to finish you, Baruch Nisan Begashmis. So the lesson is not to give in ever to the Arabs. So whatever we have, any things that we have, and everybody has things that are strong by them, everyone has struggles as well. But the more you give in, you should know the more you're going to end up losing. Because that's how the Arab works. The Arabs never satisfy. They're just going to want more and more and more till Rahman al-Islam. So that's the lesson that we can learn B'chlal from the situation, and that we should know for ourselves, that the more we'll be on top of not give back within ourselves, that'll be mashpia on the world as well. How is it connected to the coming of Mashiach? Everything is connected to the coming of Mashiach. It's all simonim, any kind of unrest. That Rebbe said the famous Yalkut Shimoini, that the Malchis, Mizgardis, Bezu, all the other wars over there. I was talking about Arab countries fighting with each other. But the fact that all these, there's so many wars in the world, and all these protests and all these things, all the unrest that Rebbe always said is a simon for the coming of Mashiach. More than that, I don't know. We should be Zeiche B'Kardev Mamish.